Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the unbelievable, rapid-fire managerial evolution of Vincent Kompany. This is a story that completely defies the usual logic of modern football. It's an absolute roller coaster, taking us from intense struggles straight to the pinnacle of the European game. So, we've got to start with the ultimate question, right? How exactly does a manager go from a disastrous 24-point Premier League relegation straight into the most prestigious hot seat in German football? And the craziest part? These two realities happen just weeks apart. It's the kind of career whiplash that leaves fans and pundits literally scratching their heads. But while the football world was in total shock, the Bayern hierarchy saw something else entirely. They didn't see failure. They saw a tactical revolutionary, a guy who totally refused to compromise on his attacking ideals. Just listen to their sporting director, Max Eberl. He flat out said, "He was on our list from the start because I think he is a huge coaching talent." They weren't dwelling on the relegation. They saw a profound understanding of the game and a completely unshakable identity.
Which brings us to Chapter 1, the Anderlecht Apprenticeship.
To really understand his philosophy, we have to look back at the crucible where it all started, his boyhood club, Anderlecht. This was the testing ground for a very ambitious young manager. He arrived in May 2019 with this super romantic idea of being a player-manager. But, that idea quickly collided with reality after the club's worst start in 2 decades. It was a harsh wake-up call that playing elite football and managing it are two entirely different beasts. So he steps down from pitch duties just a few months later in August 2019, before eventually retiring to become the full-time head coach in August 2020.
Okay, let's look at the foundation he built there. He was deeply influenced by his mentor Pep Guardiola. Kompany actually says Pep gave him a curriculum for understanding football. And what's wild is how aggressively he trusted youth to execute these incredibly complex possession-based systems. We're talking a squad with an average age of just 22.7 years. He developed future superstars like Jeremy Doku and Joshua Zirkzee, all while experimenting and fluctuating between 4-3-3 and 4-4-2 formations.
Let's move to Section 2, the Burnley Revolution. So he heads over to England, taking over a financially strapped Burnley squad, and orchestrates an absolute revolution. This is the moment the wider football world really sat up and started paying attention. Against all odds, he guided this totally rebuilt squad back to the Premier League with a staggering, record-breaking 101 points in the championship. That's not just promotion, guys. That is absolute domination of a notoriously tough league, wrapping up the title with 2 games to spare. What's truly fascinating about this transition is the sheer stylistic whiplash. It was a total contrast. For a decade under Sean Dyche, Burnley was all about direct, physical, defensive football. Kompany completely eradicated that. Out of nowhere, they became this beautiful, possession-obsessed machine. His side averaged a massive 65% possession and bagged a league-high 87 goals. Night and day.
But then we hit Section 3, Premier League Reality Check.
The fairy tale hit a massive brick wall when they stepped up to the top flight. The 2023-2024 Premier League season handed out some absolutely brutal lessons. When you map out his managerial record, you see his win percentage plummeted to 42.7% at Burnley. This ultimately led to relegation. And why? Largely because his high defensive line and his absolute insistence on playing out from the back were just repeatedly punished by elite attackers. The sheer athleticism and quality of the Premier League totally overwhelmed a squad built on a limited budget, and they ended up conceding 78 goals.
Which leads perfectly into our next twist. Section 4, the Bayern Munich era.
It was precisely that stubborn refusal to abandon his attacking principles that convinced Bayern Munich he was their man. Crazy, right? They desperately needed a cultural reset after a trophyless season, and Kompany was their bold answer. But it wasn't just about tactics. It was his brilliant, empathetic man management that made an instant impact. His multilingual approach immediately revitalized struggling players. Take defender Dayot Upamecano, for example. He said, "He told me it's okay to make mistakes in football. All he asks is that when you make a mistake, you fix it. I feel his trust." Kompany fostered this elite dressing room culture just by building pure trust. Let's break down how he did it on the pitch. Section 5. Kompany's Tactical Revolution. How exactly did he transform Bayern into such an attacking juggernaut? This is where things get super fascinating. Check out his 3-2-5 shape in possession. Notice how he uses inverted fullbacks who tuck inside to join the midfield? He's got Harry Kane dropping deep to act as a false 9, and maybe most incredibly, Manuel Neuer stepping way up to act as a sweeper keeper, functioning as a literal third man in the build-up. This creates massive numerical superiority right from the back line. But here's the kicker. It's not just about static shapes.
Unlike Guardiola's strict positional play, Kompany relies heavily on what's called relational play. This concept is basically controlled chaos. It prioritizes player relationships and trusts the attackers to fluidly swap positions on the fly, creating unpredictable, quick combinations instead of just staying glued to rigid, predefined zones. Because of that extreme fluidity, his team frequently morphs into this mind-boggling, high-risk 2-2-6 attacking structure. Just think about that for a second. Committing 6 players to completely overwhelm the opposition in the final third. That leaves just 2 center backs and 2 pivots to mop up any danger. It is incredibly daring.
And once he got his hands on Bayern's world-class roster, he was finally able to fully execute this relentless vision. If you track his tactical evolution across his clubs, his pressing intensity and his goals per game absolutely skyrocketed, reaching their absolute peak during this phase at Bayern.
But of course, there's always a learning curve. A heavy 4-1 defeat to Barcelona in the Champions League brutally exposed the risks of that high line. But this was a huge turning point. It taught him to mature his system from relentless risk to smart efficiency. He adapted. He started dropping Joshua Kimmich slightly deeper for cover, and he shifted the team from running relentlessly for 90 minutes to using targeted, smart pressing traps. That tweak totally cemented their defensive solidity.
And the most crucial takeaway here? That defensive evolution didn't kill their attacking flair at all. In fact, it enhanced it. It all culminated in a jaw-dropping 2025-2026 season where Bayern Munich actually broke the all-time Bundesliga record for the most goals scored in a single campaign, and they did it with 5 games to spare. Just a total masterclass in finding tactical balance.
So, as you sit back and digest the incredible rise of this coaching prodigy, literally going from a brutal relegation to breaking historic records in Germany, I'm going to leave you with one final thought to debate in the comments. Revolutionary or evolutionary? Is Vincent Kompany a tactical revolutionary who's completely changing the game, or is he simply the next evolutionary step from Guardiola's blueprint? Let me know what you guys think, and thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.